You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Good morning, and welcome to Matt Nair on Air. Jane Matt Nair, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenoff, coming to you live from our home at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can also leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. It's Friday, so Dan Schaefer is here, Civic Media's political editor and also the creator of the multi-award-winning Recombobulation Area. We're talking a little bit about some flaming wars going on.
No, it's just my weird week.
Dan's
I've had a weird week.
A discombobulating week.
Very discombobulating week. So I had a tweet. We talked about in the last segment. I had a tweet referenced by the New York Times. Twitter poll that I posted about Mandela Barnes posted in the New York Times, which is just weird. And then had a little bit of a back and forth this week on Twitter with some of the folks from the Jay Weber Show on News Talk 1130 WISN, who they always conveniently blame Milwaukee for everything all of the time.
It's Milwaukee's fault.
Everything is always, the mismanagement in Milwaukee, and it's Milwaukee's fault, and the streetcar this and that and whatever. Tom Barrett, Chevy Johnson, all these different things. And we're always going to blame Milwaukee. So this time they were talking about this story that the fire chief, Aaron Lipsky, had raised, that they are having some difficulty budgeting for replacing some of their vehicles, some of the actual fire engines, and updating some of them are getting old. They want to update it. Those are very expensive. The city doesn't have the budget for all of that.
Right.
And so his point was to say that, the city needs to be prioritized better. The city needs to do a better job budgeting. But I always you always need to look upstream for where these problems tend to start, which in our case, in Wisconsin, for so many issues over and over and over again, these issues start at the Republican-controlled state legislature.
Without a doubt.
They have had full control of the state legislature in the state for 15 years now. And so to somehow divorce from Milwaukee from the rest of the state and say that they bear absolutely no responsibility for the challenges that the city faces, I think is absurd. But then we also have this issue that I think every community across the state is facing, not just Milwaukee, with local government and particularly paying for some of these major expenses when it comes to things in public safety. And so, if you look at local news across the state, and the local news landscape has been decimated, and,
yes.
and I'm glad that we at Civic Media are trying to play at least some role to
keep
be an oasis
alive
in the news desert and continue to. We've got some new reporters all over the state that have started over the last few months, which is really exciting. If you look at some of these local news stories, there are places all over the state that are saying, "Hey, we might need to cut some fire department jobs."
The city of Brookfield.
The city of Brookfield was the exact example that I used, Jane.
Yes.
Because the city of Brookfield, they had a referendum that failed, and then their mayor put out a budget proposal and said, "Hey, we're going to have to cut some things. We're going to have to cut $4 million from our city budget." The first thing mentioned was something in the fire department.
Right.
So my point was that this is not a Milwaukee problem. This is not a Brookfield problem. The fact that states that are different political ideology, whatever it might be, are facing the same issue suggests to me that the problem is upstream and the problem is at the state government. And because we've known for years and years and years that the state is underfunding local government, we've had the shared revenue bill that passed a couple years ago was essential to getting something addressed there, but it didn't go nearly far enough.
Right.
Tony Evers' proposal at the time would have gone much farther to bring more money to local government. So my issue here is that the Republican-controlled state legislature continues to sit on a $4 billion surplus while our local governments are starved. And if they want to talk about defunding the police or defunding public safety or not paying for this in the fire department, not paying for priorities in the budget, it goes back to the state. It's not because, and I want to put the call out to our listeners here on the show too. If you in your community across the state have seen examples of your city government's
cutting
budget,
services,
cutting key services, whether it's public safety or other major priorities within the city, it happens everywhere all over the state. And it goes back to how state government is run. Yes, there might be some issues with the local level and prioritizing and budgeting and doing the right thing and having a fiscally sound budget and whatever it might be. But the fact that New Berlin and Elm Grove and Brookfield are all dealing with the same types of problems that Milwaukee is suggests to me that this is not a Milwaukee problem.
No, we have a common problem,
Right.
and it's the Republican-controlled legislature.
Well, and I think it also goes to show that these talking heads, pundits, whoever they are, coming from whatever choice of media you want to look at, they honestly don't really care about the problem. They say Milwaukee bad. I can put that on Twitter. I can say that and get a lot of likes and views and retweets and make fodder of that. They don't care about Milwaukee. They don't care about Brookfield. They don't care about Elm Grove, Waukesha, because most of those people don't have to worry about the problems that other people have to face. But what always seems to baffle my mind is that we hear a lot of individuals say, don't raise my taxes. Don't raise my taxes. My taxes. My taxes. They seem to purport themselves as tax experts because they don't want their taxes raised. But the moment they vote no on raising their own taxes, and then we say your services are going to get cut. Why? Because you didn't want your taxes raised. You voted no. Therefore, we now have to make cuts. If you are going to talk about being fiscally responsible, then we have to be fiscally responsible. And that doesn't mean that the things you don't like get cut. It means the things that are more expensive have to be sacrificed, including fire, including police, including buses,
libraries,
garbage pickup, libraries.
Mm-hmm.
So when people come at, not me personally, but just at the situation of don't raise my taxes, how dare you raise my taxes? It's so expensive. Yeah, because the cost of living goes up. I love doing this. I will quote Oliver Wendell Holmes, a Republican. Taxes are what you pay to live in a civilized society. And if you don't like it, well, then your society will reflect what you don't want to spend on, and it might be a little less safe. But they do not care about Milwaukee. They don't care about anything. They just want to make political hay, and they want attention. And that is the most frustrating part, because no matter, my mom lives in Brookfield. And the fact that they might have to cut things, that, will it directly affect her immediately? Probably not, but it could.
Milwaukee's getting some heat right now for proposing a wheel tax.
Yeah.
You know who else did that this year also? New Berlin. Did that get
as much attention?
Did that get a segment on the morning show there? No.
Probably not.
No, it's never going to get attention unless it's a Milwaukee thing. So it's always just Milwaukee, Milwaukee, Milwaukee. Well, maybe it's not just Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Maybe it's every community across the state is facing similar challenges, and we need to do a better job funding local government. And I would even make the argument that we need to do more to fund local government and less to fund state government, because I think local issues can be managed better by people who understand their communities. And Milwaukee, people always also were talking about in my mentions over the last couple of days here, like, we don't want to subsidize whatever Milwaukee's spending is. It is the opposite. Milwaukee is the one subsidizing the rest of the state. This is the economic engine for the rest of the state.
Yes.
And Milwaukee sends more taxes to Madison than it gets back. It is the opposite dynamic that we see there. And then there was also this point about family budgeting, and he's just like, don't you, make your own family's budget? Again, it's very different to like budget for a city of 560,000 people than a family of 4. It's a little bit of different dynamic. But also, if you're recognizing this, you need to recognize, if you're talking about it in those senses, let's recognize our sources of revenue. Right? One of the main sources of revenue for city budgets is shared revenue that comes from the state. And so to somehow divorce everything, so somehow like corner Milwaukee off from the rest of the state, like we're going to blame Milwaukee, the rest of the state has nothing to do with it. Right. Is completely, absconded from any blame that might be passed around, is just absurd.
Well, it's an easy scapegoat. The city's been an easy scapegoat for decades and decades. If you're just joining us on Matt Nair on Air, Dan Schaefer is here, Civic Media's political editor and also creator of the Recombobulation Area, multi-award-winning Recombobulation Area, talking about the city of Milwaukee and essentially just communities around the state struggling with their budgets, because again, and I think that's something that we forget, we still have that $4 billion surplus. And the only answer Republicans, in my estimation, have ever had is cutting taxes. There is no investment in things. There is no investment in schools. There is no investing in infrastructure. Tax cuts is their answer for everything that will fix everything.
I think
And
also
it
It's their
hasn't.
one economic policy.
Right.
Yeah.
And it hasn't fixed everything.
No.
No.
It's been 50 years, more than 40 years, and the wealth still has not trickled down.
We're waiting.
And one of the things too is when people in the media put forth these age-old narratives of Milwaukee, the bad city, it allows the politicians around the state to utilize that as cannon fodder to say, see, look at they're bad. This is why we shouldn't do anything about raising your taxes or making these investments. So then people who don't live in those cities can like, well, at least I know my taxes aren't going to go up. At least we're going to be fine. So the politicians don't actually have to do anything. They can just sit there and wag their finger and go, Milwaukee, Madison, all those big cities, they're so bad. And if they just knew what you knew, Dan, because you live in a tiny little town in Wisconsin, you understand, you got a family, you know how to budget. It's just that continuous regurgitation of the same talking points that allows them to never take a big swing, make the investment. Therefore, nothing is lost for them. It's lost for us. It's never lost for them.
So Milwaukee always gets undue scrutiny. I'm coaching youth sports this year with my daughter. I don't want to get into that right now. But,
Oh, you patient man.
but at one of the introductory meetings, one of the people at MPS running the kind of like youth sports coach orientation
Right.
thing was talking about just like how you need to conduct yourself as a coach. And she was saying that other schools might not face this kind of thing. If we screw up, we're on the news.
You're
That has
absolutely
really
right.
stuck with me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet.
Because
Any bad
if
behavior-
you were in Brookfield or New Berlin
Right.
or all these other things,
Yep.
you might have some bad behavior. It's not making the 6 o'clock news.
Yep.
If you do it in Milwaukee, it's making the 6 o'clock news.
Wow.
Wow. Oh, my God.
I'm sorry, but we can take this back to Tommy Thompson and stick it to Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
This goes back a long way.
This has been the narrative of all of them for decades and decades and decades across the country. The city is always the worst place. It's the infestation of evil and crime and
and all the moochers.
Yeah.
And only people apparently in urban areas use the Affordable Care Act and SNAP and other benefits. And that's not actually true.
Yeah.
It's Jenny on the live stream says cities can't work without what rural regions provide them, agriculture, and rural regions can't survive without cities' revenue. It's a partnership. It's an investment
We're
in a
all in
partnership.
this together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, smaller towns, villages, unincorporated areas, those folks are going to have to feel the tightening on their budgets and see those services disappear because their leaders won't lead and do something about it. And we have this gridlock, and yeah, cool tax cuts for everyone, and just decimate our surplus. What happens when there's no surplus left? What do we do for tax cuts? How do we got to make more sacrifices then? More education being cut? I don't know how much more we can do, but yeah, is it an Ouroboros? It's a snake eating its own tail. I think it's what it is. I don't know. It's just really
We'll go with
frustrating.
it.
It's
Yeah.
really frustrating.
We're going to continue recombobulating with Dan Schaefer on the other side. You can always join us at 855-752-4842. You are listening to Matt Nair on Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Stay close. We will be right back.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
Good morning. Welcome back to Matt Nair on Air. Jane Matt Nair, Greg Bach, Calvitini on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. Join us at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up for the last half an hour of the show. For Audio Sorbet, we will talk a little bit about sports. We'll talk about the Bucs season and some favorite moments from the Brewers,
Yes.
which they had a good season.
They had a great season.
And then we'll wrap up the show with a listener. This shouldn't be a thing.
So love it. I love when that happens.
I do too. Sent it by Peter. Take a breath edition for Tisbat coming up at the very end of the show around 10:53. Hope you can stick around for that. Dan Schaefer's here, Civic Media's political editor, creator of the Recombobulation Area. We have been covering a number of things since you joined us, Dan, but we had a text come in that we want to address real quickly here. I think it was slightly unfair to categorize the investigation into teacher misconduct a Democratic problem. The time frame from 2018 through 2023 crossed political affiliations and happened while Republicans hold a supermajority. Slightly disingenuous to suggest this falls more heavily on Democrats.
Which we were not saying it's the Democrats' fault. I'm not going to speak for any of you in here. I'm not saying it's the Democrats' fault. I'm not saying it's a Democrat problem. I'm saying it's a systemic problem within this department. A department, if you look back, has been run by Democrats going back all the way from Jill Underly to Carolyn Stanford. I can't remember her last name right now. Carolyn, I want to get her name correct right now. Carolyn Stanford Taylor to Tony Evers, who held the job before. They're all Democrats. The point is that it is the responsibility of the Democrat who's in charge of the DPI, Jill Underling, to do something about this. And she should have. And someone on the live stream said that this investigation took place from 2018 to 2023 before her term. That is also untrue. She got into office in 2021. The point that I think we're all trying to make here is time for people to step up and do something. We're talking about the safety and health of children. We're talking about a massive problem within DPI, and the person who's in charge didn't come to an investigation, and the Democrats who are sitting in office are saying nothing, and that is a problem. It's not a Democratic problem. It's not for them to fix, but it's for them to say something. That's my point personally.
And appreciate the comment.
Yeah.
And you can comment as well at 855-752-4842. Yes.
Do we have a call too?
We do. Cindy
okay.
from Appleton is on the line. Good morning, Cindy. Thanks for joining us. What did you want to chime in on?
Well, you were talking about how the Republican legislator is sitting on a huge deficit or a budget surplus, and how they're starving out the cities and the rural, divide versus the city, whatever. The point of the matter is no matter what the Republicans do, their base, their followers are going to vote for them and keep them in office no matter what happens. And I don't know what it's going to take for these people to start waking up and smelling the coffee, because just nothing ever seems to change.
Mm-hmm.
Time to vote all the bums out.
Well, and that's something we talked about before the show, too. It feels like there has to be a tangible event that takes place. Whether
in every individual's life.
Yeah, and whether it's inflation getting to the point where people can't afford to live in their homes, or there's something. I don't want that to happen. That's not. I don't want to wish ill upon anyone or this country or people, but it just feels like that's where we're at, and that's upsetting.
Yeah, but look, we're in a 50-50 state here. Republicans win a lot of elections, Democrats win a lot of elections here. There's an opportunity next year for a Democratic trifecta, the first time in forever.
Yeah.
We got to take that seriously. And in order to be able in a position to do that, Democrats got to address actual problems when they come up.
Yes.
And stop burying their head in the stand.
Yes.
Just like they did with Joe Biden last year.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got to step up.
Yep.
And you have to get in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
Which they're not doing.
Yeah. And being so risk averse that you say nothing is not a solution either.
No.
We saw that, and you brought this up many times, and I totally agree with you with the whole immigration point last year is, you might not like the Republicans' stance on immigration and their policies and their plans, but they have a policy and a plan. And regardless of its veracity or its constitutionality, they said something out loud, whereas Democrats are going, well, it's a tough thing to talk about, and we really got to get together in a room and have a really good no, say something.
Well, let's not forget, there was an immigration deal. Yeah. We had a deal. We had a bipartisan deal in Washington that was all ready to be signed until Donald Trump stepped in and said, no, don't fix this. I want to run on this. And that's what they did.
Yeah. And that's what they did.
And that's how they scuttled that deal.
Yeah. And Democrats' message coming out of that was also bad, because they were saying we wanted to do this deal, but Trump wouldn't let us. Yeah. And that's just sounding like a position of weakness too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Brett from Brown Deer, you get the final word on this before we go to the news. Brett, thanks for joining us. What'd you want to say?
Thank you, guys. Hey, this problem with the teachers, it seems to me nobody's addressing the real issue of the molesting of children. Maybe the problem is this voluntary turn in your license. Maybe we need to make sure the police are investigating every single report abuse.
Yeah.
I think
Thanks.
that's core to the issue here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thanks,
Yeah.
Brett.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's it. And regardless of why, if a teacher is being investigated for these accusations, the paper trail should be very, very clear on why they either left via quitting or being fired. So it's researchable throughout the country, and they shouldn't be allowed to teach again.
That shouldn't be a hard thing.
And also, as the folks from DPI noted yesterday in the committee hearing, the standards for this are much higher in public schools than a lot of the private and charter schools
That's
as
a
well.
whole
So that's a
nother-
whole other
It's a
conversation.
whole
we
other
could be having, too.
conversation. News coming up next. We will lighten it up when we come back with a little audio sorbet and a This Shouldn't Be a Thing, so stay with us. You are listening to Matt Nair on Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome back to Matt Nair on Air. Jane Matt Nair, Greg Bach, Sweet Calby on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. Call or text at 855-752-4842. You can also leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream. Good morning, live stream.
Hello.
On Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Dan Schaefer is here, Civic Media's political editor and the creator of the Recombobulation Area. He joins us every Friday. Just a reminder, Packers going up against our ex-boyfriend, the Steelers. Our broadcast starts on Sunday at 5 o'clock. You can catch the game on WAUH in Watoma, WRCO in Richland Center, WCQM in Park Falls, and here in Racine and Kenosha on WRJN. Packers at Steelers. Our broadcast starts on Sunday at 5 p.m. Also, I wanted to share real quickly just a text that came in from Andrew in Maine. One of the many favorable features of Civic Media is the various hosts' willingness to engage listeners via text, calls, comments, allowing a feeling of conversation instead of being talked at. Thank you, Jane, Greg, Boardlord, and Dan, along with the rest of Civic Media staff and admin. Thank you so much, Andrew. We really appreciate
It's
that.
a nice comment.
It is.
Thanks, Andrew.
We really appreciate it. It's very rare people take the time to send in nice things.
I've heard a
They
lot
take
of
a lot of time to send in some interesting things.
I've had a lot of not so nice things in my
Yes.
mentions this week.
I-
A nice comment is a refreshing one.
It's always very welcome.
It's
We
much
really-
better on Matt Nair on Air than it is on Twitter.com these days, that's for sure.
Wait, it was a sewer.
When I moved into our house in Kenosha a few years ago, I just decided to email our alderman and say, "Hi, we just moved into the neighborhood. Looking forward to meeting you one day or getting to a council meeting or something." And I get a response back within the day going, "Well, this is new. I don't usually get these emails saying hello and how are you
I
doing?"
bet.
And I mean, it's usually and I know that because I worked in small government and I saw those emails and those voice messages. I will take it around to myvote.wi.gov. We've been talking a lot this show and with Dan about local government, about local politics, what affects you directly from that ballot box to you. And you go to myvote.wi.gov and get in touch with your representatives, whether it's the president of the United States or your council member, your county supervisor. Tell them what kind of job you think they're doing. Be respectful. If you like it, let them know. That helps.
Please, if your elected official is doing something that you think is good, please tell them.
Exactly.
They don't
Yeah.
hear those very often.
Yeah.
Yeah, and get involved. Participation is power.
Yep,
Absolutely.
exactly. We still have a voice.
We do still have a voice. Knowledge is power, too. If they tell you not to read a book, that's the first one you should read. Let's talk basketball.
Yeah.
Bucks are underway.
We're back, baby.
We're undefeated.
That's right.
Do we play one game?
We played one game.
Okay. Hey, we're undefeated.
I
Just
was
give us
there.
the ring now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I saw the
I was
picture.
there. Yeah,
I saw
went
the
to-
picture.
I went
Yeah.
to the home opener with a couple of my buddies, and it was a great game. It
Well,
was.
that was with Middleton, right?
Yeah, so it was, Chris Middleton now plays for the Washington Wizards, which is very weird.
Ooh,
And
the Wizards.
and he made his first trip back to Milwaukee since being traded in the middle of the season last year. So as has kind of become custom in the NBA, when there's a lot of player movement and whatever.
Sure.
There's like a tribute video and a whole fan experience that's involved with it. So like they let all the fans coming through the doors know. They're just like, say, hey, the Middleton video is going to be the first time out in the first quarter. Make sure you're in your seats. Make sure you're watching for that. Like it was the largest collection of Chris Middleton jerseys on planet Earth at Fiserv Forum
That's
on Wednesday
pretty
night.
great.
And he got an ovation when he got introduced with the opposing team. He got a huge ovation with the tribute video. And Giannis had said in media comments before that, he's like, I want Chris to cry. I want, I don't know if he quite teared up, but I know there were not a whole lot of dry eyes in the house after that one. And then every time Chris got the ball or he's shooting free throws or whatever, he just kind of hears it, from the Milwaukee crowd. It was just, and even like at the very end of the game, he's kind of shaking hands with Giannis and some other players that he, Bobby Portis, players he had a lot of history with and whatever. And as he walks off the court into the tunnel, the whole crowd gives him a standing ovation.
Oh, that is
one more
cool.
time. It was a very cool experience. Such a beloved player. Played for Milwaukee for 12 years. Won
Did
a championship.
a lot for the city.
Did a lot for the city.
Yes.
He always does he does his 12 days of Christmas
Yep.
every year and all of that. Just a beloved Milwaukee Buck. His jersey is going to be hanging in the rafters someday. It was a very cool experience to be there for that.
Well,
Chris Middleton forever.
I am just so happy that Milwaukee showered him with love.
Yeah.
I really am. And I saw a bunch of videos with him when he was coming in, even before he got onto the court.
Yeah.
And people were there with signs and, high fives. And it was just a really heartwarming thing to see.
It's funny you say that because Dan and I had the pleasure of going to what I think was the greatest Brewers game I've ever gone to in my entire life. It was
such a fun one.
It was movie dramatic from start to final walk-off home run from William Contreras, like screaming and yelling. But this was against the Giants, and Willie Adames, who now plays for the Giants, was there. And we missed it because we got there a little bit late. But when he walked out to the plate, the place erupted with, so excited to see him. Huge ovation, clapping. Yeah, he hits a home run. The next time he comes up, boos to Muskego. Like never forgiven, never forgotten. Like there was no redeeming. And I think he hit another home run. He hit 2 home runs that night. The first one we're like, oh, and the second one we're like, oh.
Yeah.
But that was truly that was fun to watch. Just I'm like, oh, what did he do? Oh, he hit a home run. That's why you don't like him anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was fun seeing Chris and Giannis. Like they're, they played together for 12 years. They're brothers, basically.
Right.
Spend more. They did a podcast together this week. They spend more time with each other than their families. Over 12 years of basketball and travel and all of that. And they were guarding each other most of the game, and they kind of know all of each other's tricks
and the moves.
And that was just really fun to watch. I was
bet.
audibly laughing at different points of the game because they know each other so well, and they were just like, there was a steal here, there was a block there, there was this. And it was just a really fun game to watch. And the Bucks, they got to have a lot of new players this year, have a much more up-tempo, up-and-down style, shot 1 million three-pointers. They're going to be a really fun team to watch this year, too.
Do you think we're going to have a good season?
I think we're going to have a good season. It might not be like the, 2021 when they were like in the inner ring of championship contenders and what it might be. They've got a little ways to go. Might need to make some more, more trades or additions or whatever it might be if they want to get into that. But they've added Miles Turner, who's their new center. Very athletic, big guy, can shoot threes, 7-footer, had a monster dunk in the first quarter the other night. He's going to bring a much different energy than Brook Lopez, I love Brook Lopez, but, he's getting up there in years. He was never exactly he's kind of a slow-footed guy to begin with.
Right.
So I think they're going to be a much more up-and-down team, a lot more threes, a lot more turnovers, fast breaks, whatever. They're going to be a fun team to watch.
Calvin, you're our biggest NBA fan here in the show.
Yeah. It was great to see Chris Middleton. Obviously, I caught it during the broadcast. He is number 1 in Bucks history for 3-pointers made, and he's like number 3 in points, assists, and games played. So he's obviously one of the greatest Bucks players of all time. So it's great to see him. I'm optimistic about the season.
Yeah.
Look, I wasn't a fan of the Doc Rivers signing when it happened, and he hasn't shown me much to be excited about since the signing. So I'm very much, we'll wait and see what happens.
I mean,
I understand Doc Rivers' skepticism. That's for sure.
I'll be excited about Doc Rivers when Doc Rivers shows excitement. I mean, at first it was kind of cool to see when he first got on board. It was kind of cool to see a coach say, "Yeah, we didn't play well, we lost." That and not really pontificate or try to make excuses, but just really a matter of fact say, "Yeah, we lost, we got outplayed, we didn't do this, we need to do that." All right, cool. I'm going to go back to the locker room. But now it just feels like no matter what happens, he's like, "Yeah."
See, and I kind of love that rather than
He's
him
old school.
Trying to dance around and come up with excuses and just throw lots of words at people.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we lost. We sucked that game.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Yeah,
move
yeah.
on. You know?
Yep. It's a long season. You got to kind of have that kind of attitude.
Exactly.
As a coach, for sure.
Exactly. And it's okay. Dan Schaefer is here. We're recombobulating, by the way, on Matt Nair on Air. Also editor, a political editor for Civic Media and creator of the Recombobulation Area. Let's love on our Brewers a little bit.
Yeah.
Because again, they lost that game on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time we came back on Monday, everybody's like, yeah, let's move on and pretend that never happened. They had a really good season.
They had a great season.
They had a season that was far and above what anyone ever expected. From local to nationwide, nobody expected to see the Brewers in the NLCS. It was supremely disappointing to see them get swept. And the question I wanted to ask, I'll probably ask J.R. Ratcliffe this question next week too, is because I'm going to tie this in with the Bucks. One of the criticisms or concerns, I should say, concerns of Doc Rivers is his playoff history is not great. Mm-hmm. So do we need to look at the Brewers as a playoff team? Because we don't have a huge problem getting into the playoffs. We make it in the wild card. Right. And this year we made, sparklingly right into like the first round
in the league. But it's been like 4 of the last 5 seasons.
Postseason,
right?
Yeah. We have hit that postseason, but is it about the fact that the Brewers might not be the best postseason? And no, it's true. We aren't. We usually flail out. And the fact that we made it to the NLCS was pretty special. We hadn't been there since 2018. But is it about saying, all right, when you're playing that long and you're playing that well and you're putting your body through that extra play, those games can also take a toll and injuries mount up. Is there any way to prep for preseason where you're playing at your best? I don't think so, because your body's going to be showing the wear, but it just seems like we always fall apart there. And this was a falling apart that was, it hurt. It sucked. If we would have lost 4-3, if we would have even lost, honestly, if we would have lost 5-1 or whatever, I would have been like, all right, we at least won something. But this was just a shellacking, and it didn't feel good.
Well, I think, too, it's just, getting the Brewers played such a great season. Probably my favorite Brewers season since 2011. The 2011 team was probably my favorite all-time Brewers season. But with Prince Fielder, Ricky Weeks, all those guys. This is my favorite season in a long time. We had a great time at the game. Oh. I went to more games this year than I had been to in a long time. The Pat Murphy pocket pancake thing, the George Webb's run, just a really enjoyable. It had a lot of just like fun, goofy stuff, which I think makes the 162 game Brewer season a lot of fun.
It does.
Yeah. A really memorable season, and they beat the Cubs in the playoffs, which was amazing. But then you run into the Dodgers. The Dodgers are playing a different sport entirely, I think, than the rest of Major League Baseball. Like, maybe they could have beat any other team, but the Dodgers have like 4 aces and like 5 all-stars in their team. And it's just like, Ohtani pitches that game last week, and it's just like, I can't even be mad at him. It's like that line from Anchorman, you ate an entire wheel of cheese. I'm not even mad. I'm impressed. That was amazing.
And I understand that, because the Dodgers are the Dodgers. And you got these big market teams with a lot of money, big stars, they can afford that. But we also swept the Dodgers this season, and we went up against the Dodgers in 2018, and we lost, but we didn't lose like this.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like, I'm willing to accept an NLCS loss if at least we would have shown up. And it just felt like after the second loss, I'm like, the bats aren't going to come awake. This kind of playing doesn't. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry to ruin everyone's. This isn't a movie. When you're not playing well and you're playing as poorly as they were, you're not going to wake up one morning going, I'm inspired. It's your body. It's your playing. It's a whole host of things. That's the question is, for next season, how do you address those issues?
Because the bats were cursed. No one watches Bull Durham, the most comprehensive baseball movie of all time. I brought this up. We could have fixed it.
Guys, want to talk about the Badgers now?
Let's not do that. When we return, we're going to wrap up the show with a listener-submitted This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Stay close. You are listening to Matt Nair on Air, coming to you on the Civic Media Radio Network. Don't go away.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
Good morning and welcome back to Matt Nair on Air. Jane Matt Nair, Greg Bach, Calvinator on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. Join us, call or text. The number is the same at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Our thanks to Dan Schaefer, Civic Media's political editor, creator of the multi-award-winning Recombobulation Area. If you don't subscribe, I suggest that you do.
Subscribe to that. Subscribe to Civic Media Today. Go to civicmediatoday.substack.com, and that's a wonderful daily free newsletter with a great snapshot of all the things happening around the network, from shows to podcasts to news stories, everything you need. A nice collection of the best of Civic Media by going to civicmediatoday.substack.com.
And as Dan mentioned, too, we have just hired a couple more news people around the state.
Yep.
This is a rarity, my friends.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of media companies that are hiring people.
Yeah.
And so if you support Civic Media and you like what we do, tell somebody.
Tell a friend.
Tell a friend.
Yeah.
Tell one of our advertisers you appreciate them advertising on Civic Media. That makes a big difference.
It really does.
It really does.
It really does.
Coming up next week, we have a jam-packed week.
The next few weeks are jam-packed.
We really do. Mr. Global, Matt Randolph, is going to join us on Monday. We're going to talk about energy prices. Everything is down, Greg.
Then why
the president says everything is down. It's good.
Hold on one second. Matt, I'm on the phone. We're out. Yeah, you don't have to show up anymore. It's everything's solved. Everything's good.
We're going to talk to Matt Randolph, Mr. Global, on Monday. Corrine Hendrickson will be here. She is now running for office. We're going to talk to Clean Wisconsin. Hans Breitenmoser is a Wisconsin farmer. He is going to be joining us. Lots of things coming up for you next week, so I hope you can join us as well. Right now, Calvin, it is 10:54. That means it's time for...
This shouldn't be a thing.
If you ever find a thing you think should not be, like Peter did with today's This Shouldn't Be a Thing, send it in to Greg and me at Jane Says at civicmedia.us, JANESAYS, Jane Says at civicmedia.us. Again, this was sent in by Peter. Thank you so much, Peter. This is from IFL Science. Stephen Luntz has the byline. The headline reads, ignoble winning butt breathing technique moves one step closer to saving lives. Turtles do it. Baby dragonflies do it. So why shouldn't people with clogged lungs survive by breathing through their posterior? This is a good one. The results of the first clinical trial of enteral ventilation has been published. It is considered a success, a step along the road to a treatment that could save many lives. Such things happen every day as science progresses. But this stands out because enteral ventilation is more popularly known as butt breathing. Several Australian turtle species have found a way to delay the dangers of coming to the surface by extracting oxygen dissolved in water using their cloaca. They have gill-like features in their bums, which supplement oxygen intake.
This just sounds like an evolution thing at this point, then.
Medical applications were probably not the first thing on the mind of those who discovered this trait. However, Dr. Takanori Tagepi of the Science of Institute in Tokyo started studying the turtles in 2004, the mammals able to breathe through their butts. Undeterred by the challenges of being taken seriously, Dr. Takanori Tabiki plowed ahead. He says, quote, this is the first human data. The results are limited, but we have now established tolerance. The next step will be to evaluate how effective this process is for delivering oxygen. Tabeki and his colleagues know they can't just blow air up someone to get their blood oxygenated.
Is that where the phrase comes from?
Their approach is to create a liquid rich in dissolved oxygen, but provided anally for absorption through the colon.
Oh, boy.
If nutrients can make their way from the intestine straight to the blood, why not oxygen?
Why not, folks?
Why not?
Why not?
Surprisingly, the idea requires less advanced technology than you would think. This could be available to remote regions or where money is more of an option. Moreover, ventilators can cause lung injuries, so this would be an alternative. For the study, 27 healthy Japanese men were administered a liquid and then asked to hold it for 60 minutes. Those on larger amounts reported some discomfort, no serious side effects. This is a long study. This was a safety test. The liquid they were ingested did not carry oxygen, so this is step number 1. Clinical trials, they're trying to get them going. They're probably looking for volunteers.
Peter, again, thanks for the story, buddy. Really, there are some. I'm really surprised there aren't more puns. This feels like this was rife for puns.
Oh, there's so much potential
There's
here.
a whole bunch of puns out there.
There are some concerns. Some people say they'd rather not be around when yoga instructors encourage their participants to breathe out. That wraps up today's episode of
This Shouldn't Be a Thing.
I love how much you love this.
This kills me. Thank you, Greg and Calvin and all of our engineers and everyone at Civic. Without you, nothing works. And thank you most of all for calling and texting and listening and watching on the stream. It means the world. I hope you find some joy over the weekend and you get the chance to share it. Keep it right here. We have news coming up next. Tom Hartman, noon to 2, Todd Alba 2 to 4, Maggie 4 to 6, Pete 6 to 8, Robert Pilots, and so much more right here on the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll see you Monday.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.